Jon Stewart sat down for a podcast with David Axelrod, and he discussed the state of the 2016 election. Let's watch.
How responsible is the media for Donald Trump?
Oh, listen. I don't necessarily believe that a full court press on his untruthfulness would necessarily change it. I mean, he was voted for, but I do think he is generally the conclusion to years of. He makes sense if you view it through the prism of talk radio. I like to drive, and so I listen to talk radio, and it is 24/7 of your country is being taken away from you. As far as I can tell, the conservative side or on the right side, they feel an ownership over America. They are the stewards of America. They are its forebearers. Yeah. Exactly. Republicans, conservatives love America. They just hate like 50% of the people living in it.
There are a few things there that I think are interesting. First of all, he says he doesn't necessarily blame the media for the rise of Trump. I do. I blame the media because they never really fact-checked or focused on the right things. Whenever they got mad about Trump or they covered him ad nauseum, it was PC outrage. Like I remember when he was, giving this off-the-cuff speech at a rally, and somebody in the audience screamed out that Ted Cruz was a pussy or something, and he kind of repeated it on stage without saying pussy, but he's like, "Oh, you heard what she said?" So they took that little moment and they spoke about it for 3 days, where Trump called somebody a pussy. Unbelievable. I remember the ad that was run by, I think, some right-wing think tank that showed all the times that Trump cursed. That's another thing that the media covered ad nauseum. He has breached decorum. I cannot believe this. I am so shocked. It's like the media, they were collectively acting like 4-year-olds and just getting outraged at all the wrong things. Meanwhile, Trump had said, for example, we need to kill the families of ISIS, not just ISIS, the families of ISIS. So murder civilians in the Middle East on purpose. Okay, that's what I like to call terrorism. So Donald Trump advocated for war crimes and terrorism on live TV. Did that generate a day of coverage, 3 days of coverage, a week of coverage? No, it didn't. It barely got a fucking mention. Donald Trump said the Geneva Conventions is the problem. Did that generate a day, 3 days, a week of coverage? No, it didn't. You had more coverage for when he almost said pussy. So I blame the media because of their sensationalism bias and their lack of priorities and the shitty people that have been hired in this establishment corporatist structure where they don't know how to focus on the right things. If you had somebody who's actually a news junkie and who cares about the policy and they hear Trump say the things he says, they would get outraged and they would cover him a lot, but they'd focus on the shit that he says that says, oh, okay, now my job as a news anchor here, as a journalist or as a reporter is to tell you this guy, he's no longer a viable candidate. He's not a viable candidate because, goddamn, he just called the Geneva Conventions the problem. He said we should torture, quote, even if it doesn't work. He wants to copy ISIS tactics. Okay, now he's not an option. You're not going to vote for him in a conversation. And would that work? Of course that would work. It worked with fucking Howard Dean. Howard Dean made a noise in a primary. Meow! A lot of you guys probably remember the awesome Chappelle Show skit. It was like, meow! Okay, Howard Dean made that noise. It was a week of wall-to-wall coverage about, he made a noise! He's unqualified to be president! He's unqualified to be president! And people went, I guess you're right. I guess he's unqualified to be president. And then nobody voted for him after that. He got his ass handed to him after that when he was leading at the time. Or he was recently leading up to that. So with Trump, if he says these things that are egregious and ridiculous and wrong, and you say, that's it, he's no longer an option, well then yeah, that would steer the media narrative quite a bit. And that would steer the country, rightfully speaking, and it would make it so that they go, okay, he's not an option, he is a reality show clown and a buffoon, and he's crazy. But the media didn't do that. Every time they got mad, it actually strengthened him because they got mad at the wrong things. They got mad, like I said, at the PC outrage nonsense. Okay, anything identity politics related, that's what they focused. It was never, hey, here's the substance. For example, another thing, his tax plan added trillions of dollars to the debt. Did anybody say, even the conservatives who say, oh, that's all they care about is debt, did any of them come out and say, oh, look at this tax plan, what a mess this is crazy. You say you want to balance the budget, you added trillions to the debt, that makes no sense. Nobody challenged him. And whenever they did, it was a little bit, it was never the 3-day, week-long coverage that really hammers home a point when you need to. So I do blame the media more than Jon Stewart does. And then the other thing is, so I don't think that Trump is the logical conclusion of talk radio. As I've said before, I actually think that Ted Cruz is the logical conclusion of talk radio, because Ted Cruz actually listens to those shows, and he's actually a Kool-Aid drinker. Like, Ted Cruz actually loves Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck was campaigning for him. And on virtually every issue, this is the guy who, like, that's where he gets his policy positions from those people. So he's the true talk radio Kool-Aid drinker. Now, Donald Trump, he's the logical conclusion of the failure of the establishment. So, in other words, the establishment, actually all of the establishment, but even more specifically, you could say the Republican establishment, they've been so immensely disconnected from their constituents that you open up the door for a con man to come in and just take the whole thing. For example, on free trade, the Republican Party all along, and even the Democratic Party, just the establishment, they've been in favor of so-called free trade, which is just outsourcing jobs, for such a long time that all you needed was somebody to come along and be a little bit populist, and then everybody, pulls down their panties for him. That's Donald Trump. Yeah, no, I'm against these stupid free trade deals. Carrier, the air conditioning company, they went to Mexico. All I'm going to do is I'm going to slap a tariff on them, so when they send their products back in the country, 35% tax. What are you going to do now? You're going to bring that plant back here, aren't you? That's what you're going to do. That's what I want you to do. We're going to have jobs built in America. He says we're going to have Apple products built in America. Everything's going to be built in America. This is what we're going to do. So, yeah, the people who've been just totally left behind and forgotten by the party establishment, they're like, fuck yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. Social Security, as Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio were up there like idiots in the debate. We have to be fiscally responsible, and we have to cut it because we got to do the right thing, and we got to make sure that we have enough money, blah, 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 blah. Trump's like, I'm not going to cut it. I'm not going to cut it. I'm not going to cut it. You paid into it. If I cut it, I'm robbing you. That's true. He's right. So here you have a guy who actually more is representing the sentiment of the people in both parties in that respect. So they voted for him. So the Republican establishment and the establishment, they failed so badly on so many economic fronts because they don't care about the people that all you needed was somebody to come along and say, I care, even if he doesn't in real life, which I don't think he does, and they voted for him. And then the one area where I'd say he's right, though, is what he's referring to is something that I've said before, which is that Trump, in some ways, is the quintessential Republican. In some ways, like I just described, he's better with his rhetoric than they are. But in some ways, he really is the quintessential Republican. So when all the other Republicans speak in coded language to be racist and xenophobic and bigoted, Trump just says, I'm going to drop the coded language because I don't even think a lot of you guys understand it because you're not that bright. And I'm just going to say it. Yeah, I want to ban all Muslims from entering the country. That's what I want to do. Yeah, I want to build a wall, and guess what? Mexico's going to pay for it. And I'm going to have deportation forces, and I'm going to kick out over 10 million people. That's what I'm going to do. So all the other things that the Republican candidates flirted with over the years, Trump's like, why are you just flirting with it? Let's go all the way here. I want to do these things. And he just says, almost unabashedly, yeah, I'm kind of xenophobic, I'm kind of bigoted. And the Republican-based voters, they've always had that nerve there where they scapegoat the other for their problems, namely people who are worse off than them. And they go, yes, that's who I want to vote for. So I think that's kind of what Stewart means when he says that Trump is the talk radio candidate, the logical outgrowth or the logical conclusion of talk radio. And in that respect, it's true, in the respect of xenophobia and bigotry, so on and so forth. But I would actually say that Ted Cruz more embodies the different positions of the talk radio hosts. And I would say that Trump really is also, in some ways, specifically when it comes to economics, he is the logical outgrowth of a GOP establishment and just an establishment that is so disconnected from their people that they don't know how to say that they're in favor of what the people are in favor of anymore.